Hi guys, Phil McGilvray here from Grandma's Jars. Thank you for joining us. Today we're looking at tutorial 3 in our 10-part series, our top 10 tips for paying off debt. Tutorial 3, we're focusing on the importance of having a budget, a realistic budget. Budgeting is what we're all about here at Grandma's Jars, so I'm excited to be bringing this tutorial to you. I'm not going to go through the budgeting in great detail. That's for another day, another series, and certainly we have a lot of information on our website, so if you need any help with it, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. But today what I want to talk to you about is the importance of a budget to the debt reduction process. So what I'm going to start with is 3 really key reasons why or what a good budget will do for you as you strive to pay off debt. The first one here is that a budget will tell you what your expenses are, what expenses you have coming up. Too often we budget by looking at our bank account. If there's money in there, we can spend it. If there's no money in there, we can't. The problem with that is that a budget doesn't tell you when all your, a bank account won't tell you what future expenses you've got coming up. A budget will. A budget will tell you when your car registration's due, when the rates are due, when the electricity or the gas bills are due. And it will tell you exactly how much you should have set aside for those bills. So that allows you then to look at your bank account and go, okay, well, I know I've got $1,000 in the bank account, but X amount of it needs to be set aside for these upcoming expenses. So that's the first thing that a budget will do for you. The second thing is a budget will tell you what you can afford to spend. It's not all just about what you can't, and very often I'll find that people don't want to budget because they're afraid it's going to take away their freedom to spend. It's going to tell them they can't spend rather than giving them the freedom to spend without guilt. So when we set up a budget, a budget's not just about the bills, as we'll see in a moment. It's also about allocating for fun stuff, for the more discretionary things that we've got. So knowing how much we've got set aside for clothes or for holidays or for hobbies and evenings out and so on. Having money set aside for that allows you to spend it, allows you to spend it guilt-free, so that as long as you're within those boundaries of what you've allowed, you know that you can spend it and not have to worry about how you're going to cover the future bills. The third thing that a good budget will do is it'll help you quantify your surplus. And this is really important because without a surplus, there's no paying off debt. And we'll often see people who feel like they've made progress with the budget for this month. They'll stick money into savings or they'll pay money off their debt, but the next thing they know is they're having to pull that money back out of savings or putting money back on the credit card because some bills have turned up. So what happens in that instance is, people are putting money aside thinking it's savings, but really it's just money they're going to need for a bill, next month or the month after that. A good budget is going to help you identify, well, after I've taken all my expenses into account, how much do I really have spare that I can put towards saving money or put towards paying off the credit card? And that's a really, really important thing to be able to do if we're trying to get out of debt. Okay, what I want to do now is just take you through the basics of a budget. A budget starts, of course, with understanding our income. And if you're a couple, it's really important that you understand this as a couple, not as 2 individuals. That you understand, okay, well, what is our combined household income? And you'll notice here that I've also got it up as monthly income. We encourage all of our clients at Grandma's Jars to budget to a monthly cycle. Now, we've written a blog on it that you can see on our website, but just a couple of quick reasons why we do that. The first one is most bills come as multiples of month. So, you've got quarterly bills, they're monthly bills, they're annual bills, but they're all multiples of a month. And by having your income as a monthly figure, and then we also convert all your expenses to a monthly figure, you are not only cutting down on a lot of work that's involved, fiddly work that can be involved in trying to work things out if it's on a weekly basis or a fortnightly basis, but you've also got a really good platform for comparing directly monthly income with monthly expenses. Therefore, we have X amount as monthly surplus or deficit. And one of the things that most people struggle with is, well, how do I reconcile a fortnightly income with a weekly expense, or a weekly income or a fortnightly income with an annual expense or a quarterly expense and so on. And then people can often get tied in knots trying to figure all of that out. But by converting everything to a monthly figure, it smooths all those kinks out and makes things a lot easier for you. The other reason we budget to a monthly figure is that at the end of each month, we try and reconcile your budget with your bank account. And the end of each month is the obvious point to do that. It's a set date every month, whereas if you're doing it weekly or fortnightly, it can be a little bit difficult to stay on top of that. And you have to do it 52 times a year if you're budgeting to a weekly cycle, as opposed to 12 if you're budgeting to a monthly cycle. So that reconciliation process of identifying how much we've got in the budget versus how much we need in the bank account is an important part of the process. So we budget to a monthly cycle. We also identify all your expenses. It is so important that you identify every single one of your expenses in this process. It's very easy to identify how much we spend on the big bills, the gas, the cars, the car rego, the car insurance, the electricity, the rates, and so on. But where people really struggle is, well, how much do I spend on gifts? How much do I spend on holidays? How much do I spend on clothes? People just don't know those sorts of things. And so this process is really important for doing that. On our website, we have worksheets that you can use that are a really useful prompt sheet to help you identify, well, what are my expenses? And you need to then categorize your expenses, and our worksheets do that for you, into what we call jars. So jars is just an expense category. So in this instance, for instance, every day is all of your everyday spending. So groceries, petrol, parking, entertainment, takeaway, cigarettes, alcohol, bought lunches, coffees. That's all in that category there that we're allowing $1,500 a month for. And if you go through, you can see that we've got utilities, which is gas, electricity, rates, etc. And normally we have somewhere between 15 to 20 jars. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we've abbreviated the budget so that we only have 10 expenses in there. You may have more, you may have others. That's not the point of this video. Have a look at the worksheets. But what we want to look at here is we've got these categories of expenses, which is us putting aside 1/12 of all our future expenses, so that when those bills and expenses turn up, we have the money sitting there to pay it. And we've added all of those up. It comes to $5,538, our monthly total expenditure allocated to the jars each month. And we've got our monthly income, which leaves us with a surplus of $1,112. This surplus is like gold. This is why we budget. This is why we work, in fact. We work so that we can have some money left over at the end of each month. This money, knowing that all our expenses are taken into account, is truly spare. We know that we can put it into our savings, we can pay it off our debt, with the expectation that we're not going to have to pull that back out because all of our expenses are already taken into account. One of the things we'll talk about next session in tutorial 4 is the importance of having a cash reserve, because we can budget for 95% of expenses, but there's always going to be 5% we can't budget for. So using this surplus funds in the first instance to build a bit of a cash reserve so that we've got that 5% covered as well is really important. But this identifying this surplus, this is why we budget. This is what we're going to use to build our debt elimination plan. So with this, we can figure out, well, how long is it going to take us to pay off our credit card? How long is it going to take us to pay off our mortgage? We can set ourselves a roadmap using these funds here. So that's a budget. That's the importance of a budget. It is crucial if you're really going to get on top of your debt. We use it every day to help people get themselves out of a hole that they're in, start to build savings, pay off their lifestyle debt, and move forward in a very, very strong way. And you'd be surprised that once you've identified this surplus, just how quickly you can get on top of things. I hope that made sense. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.